My name is Vikas Bhadra, Associate Editor of ACE Update magazine, and I welcome you all to the ACE Update interactive session on fenestration trends from then to now. There are numerous features which make a building aesthetically pleasing to look at, apart from ensuring it remains healthy for its occupants. One such feature, which has been quite prominent in heritage buildings as also the modern day marvels, is its fenestration. Fenestration, or the arrangement of doors and windows, as it is simply known as, has also witnessed an evolution of its own. Then there are facades and building envelopes, which matter a lot in the contemporary scene. From the sacred principles of Vastu to the contemporary high rises draped in glass, fenestration continues to be one of the key aspects in architecture, building, and construction. Keeping this in mind, today we have organized an interaction on fenestration trends from then to now.
Ladies and gentlemen, the distinguished guest speakers for today's interaction on fenestration trends from then to now are Nandita Ghatge from Kagal Craft, Milind Sorkhade from Enclosure Facade Solutions Private Limited, Amit Gulati from Design 21, and Nitin Mehta from Elcoy.
Now, I would like to invite our guest speakers for the panel discussion on fenestration trends from then to now. I also want my editor, Mr. Prasad Nair, to join me for now. The first question, like everybody agrees, the presentation given by Ms. Nandita Ghatke was quite an eye-opener, and so the first question I would like to shoot at her. Ms. Nandita Ghatke, in Indian architecture, as you have rightly pointed out, and also Milind said, like we know, fenestration is nothing but arrangement of doors and windows in simple terms. So even Vastu believes that it is advisable to have a double wall, or not to have any doors and windows which are south or west facing. As a practitioner of modern day architecture and design, what is your take on it?
So, as I was saying, as also a builder's wife, I think I'm a little against Vastu because it is impossible to keep everyone happy when you're building a high-rise building. It is not practical. And I think a lot of, like horoscope stuff has come into Vastu, which is giving it a little bit of a bad name. But I'm sure there are certain principles of Vastu which have their own scientific reasons. And I'm not very familiar with it. I'll be very frank. But I'm sure there should be a little more study into it. And, we should have probably magazines like you should clear the air about misconceptions about Vastu, which is creating a lot of, scare and fear in the clients and the newcomers which are building a house. So there's some weird conceptions that come, you have to keep a cupboard in the left side of this and you can't have a here. I don't agree to all that. I think you make your own future.
Yes, absolutely. And I think Mr. Nitin also want to say something on that.
Yeah, I just like to add in, because this is something which we frequently come across when we are doing houses. And I'll be very frank, obviously, I'm not an expert on Vastu. And but I feel that, everything has some good, aspects to it. And what we should be looking at is that what is it that we can learn? Why? Because all these sciences have evolved from the past. The only problem is that during their evolution, they just didn't get documented maybe in the right way they needed to be presented to the future generation. So if I understood the question right, what was mentioned there was that as per Vastu, we should have lesser openings in the west and the south directions, correct? Now, frankly, if I add science to it, that is correct. Why? Because west and the south sun are the, the sun angle is low in winters and west and south gets the maximum heat. And that is why the west and south actually need to be designed in a manner wherein you have lesser probably glazing. But if you are forced to have a glazing, then you should be having some sun shading on that example by way of louvers, etc. Now that's under a compulsion that west or south are the only elevation, and there you need to have a fenestration. And if you need to have a fenestration, then you need to give some jaroka, chhajja, or for that matter, some louvers, etc. So very specific to the question, nothing in favor of Vastu or against Vastu, because I'm not an expert on the subject. But this particular aspect of Vastu, if it says that on west and south elevations we should have lesser fenestrations, is spot on. Why? Because that is where you gain the maximum heat from. So that answers that specific question. Nothing about generalizing Vastu as good or bad. Thank you on that.
Thank
Yes,
you.
Amit wanted to
No,
say.
I think Vastu only wants us to, use the natural elements, which includes the sun and the air and the wind in the most righteous way. So, of course, south and the west, living in our climate, we hate the sun in the summer months. So you have to block it in certain ways, like you already mentioned, like a jarokas and things like that. And of course, I mean, when you're looking at a tropical climate kind of a situation, ideally we should be outside our houses, living in verandas, living in court. Talking about Vastu is a science of its own time, and times are changing.
Correct.
We go out mostly just to get sunshine in the winters, and summers we spend in the way we are living is changing for us, which is also impacting the way the buildings are getting designed these days.
I think very well explained. I think we started on a good note, and the explanation is precise. And the fact is also the fact that it is an idea to utilize nature in our favor. Like, if I remember very correctly, one gentleman once told me that he was from Netherlands, and in Netherlands they have large windows in the south, unlike in India. So yes, it's a lot to do with the geography of a particular place. I was just moving on to the next question, and I wanted Mr. Milind.
Given the density of buildings, especially in cities like Mumbai or other metros, what are the challenges a facade engineer or a designer has to face while he's in work?
The bigger challenges while designing for facade building in Mumbai. Mumbai is altogether a different, means we can call it as a capital of facade industry. Okay. And looking at the climatic conditions, weather conditions, while designing the building orientation is a major part. The Vastu compliant, what Nitin beautifully explained, that the whole west and south sun and more heat part, we need to have that area less glazing and more ventilation and all. So that part is one part while designing the Mumbai facade design for the metro cities like Mumbai. But then the weather performance of the facade is another fact which getting neglected on many occasions, because we are receiving so much rains nowadays and wind, and the weather performance of those facade, even not only in the wind, even the thermal performance, all those factors, selecting a glass, selecting those profiles and creating all those details where we will have a waterproof, airtight facade, the acoustic performance, because the density of the facade buildings are increasing and increasing. Okay. And it's not only the commercial buildings. Nowadays, we are having the multi-story residential buildings as a modern architecture where people are living in it. But then, if you see that the old mindset of our Indian people, still people are not used to live in the glass box. They complain that they need the balcony, they need those ventilations. Those mechanical buildings are not so familiar or popular amongst the Indian people, still in the metro cities. But the trend is increasing, but somehow down in the line, I think we need to adapt to the requirement.
Yeah, especially when you look at the tall buildings or buildings which comes closer. If you see in Mumbai, you will see buildings like matchboxes here. Yes. So designing facades, even how you consider that kind of criteria?
See, the criteria is something for the taller buildings where your building heights are increasing more than 100 meters and all. The structural performance is a major criteria, thermal performance and weather performance, as I earlier said. But then the comfort for the customers, end customers, is a major. And this is where actually, as you said correctly, that it looks like a matchboxes building. Okay, but then that end user, what is the mindset of that end user? Means I will not name it, but then there are few projects where I worked and I just took the opinion of some of my end users, and I found that okay, those customers are the tech savvy customers, but their parents are the orthodox Indians who love to have the open windows. Wherever in that building there are very less openable windows and other stuff, and there are no balconies. In Mumbai nowadays, you don't find balconies in many high-rise buildings. We are doing away with the balconies. So the people are craving for such things. And those are the major challenges where you have to satisfy your end customer and keeping the budget in line.
Nitin, Mr. Vikas was asking the question about renovations of buildings, which happens in especially in the urban cities. How far these facades play a role in terms of sustainability of that building?
Okay, now that's a very good question that has been put forward. Why? Because the biggest problem that we are facing these days is to do with sustainability, and this subject is really becoming popular over a long time now, but I think it was also the need of the hour. Obviously, when a renovation is happening, ultimately a renovation normally happens in two aspects. One is to enhance the aesthetics of the facade, and the second is to enhance the experience of the customer living in the dwelling. So I am more in favor of architects and the builder concentrating more on enhancing the experience of the customer who is living in the dwelling than enhancing the the aesthetics of the facade. So when you talk about someone, because the sustainability factor only comes into the picture when we are talking about human beings which can feel, which have senses like see, hear, touch, taste, etc. Sustainability has nothing to do with the aesthetic aspect as such. So yes, when the renovations are happening, something that is very important in terms of, and I'll keep this topic very limited to when we talk about fenestration. Now we really need to look at multiple aspects, fire safety. When you say fire safety, wood goes out of the window. At the same time, if I have to add something in favor of wood, it gives you the warmth, but at the same time, it's not a sustainable product. I mean, for how long we'll be keeping on cutting our forests to probably, change the fenestration for windows. We can talk about UPVC, but then again, UPVC is a plastic product. It is not as good a recyclable product than any other material that's available. So then we are left with two options, which is aluminum and steel, frankly speaking. Why? Because they can be, reused. So one thing that goes into them is using recycled and not recyclable. I mean, if someone knows more about IGBC, Indian Green Building Council, they do not give you any points for using an aluminum which is recyclable. Why? Because it is made from virgin aluminum. If it is virgin aluminum, the mining of aluminum in itself is a carbon negative business. So these days, IGBC has very strongly, or ECBC, which is the Energy Conservation Board, has strongly recommended that someone who's using materials which are made from recycled scrap are going to get better points. So when we keep it specific to materials, then aluminum scores. Why? Because that's a very readily, I would say, recyclable product. So, it adds on to the sustainability aspect of the building for that matter. Glass in itself, again, we know it's a recyclable product. So when we are talking about these two things in combination, I mean, I'm not touching the advanced aspects of thermal break, XYZ, heat leakages, water, etc., etc. I'm talking of taking some things as very by default an engineered sustainable product. So when we talk of an engineered sustainable product, something that is easily recyclable and made from recycled materials is the right way of going about in giving the customer that particular product. that is a different advantage that we have, that with these kind of materials we are getting some additional benefits of larger spans, different colors, etc., etc. So my take on sustainability is that yes, we need to be taking care of the person who's living inside the house and the long-term future of the industry, wherein I feel that yes, aluminium with glass is a good combination going forward for Indian conditions.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Nitin. When you spoke about the materials, Mr. Amit, I have one question about the usage of say materials which works towards energy efficiency. It closely goes with sustainability. So how do you see the usage of e-glass sort of material for fenestration? Or latest trends, even we are hearing about using solar cell powered glass for say windows, which enhances the energy efficiency aspect of a building.
Correct. So the solar, there was a time when it was only crystalline cells which was used for the solar energy, and then the amorphous cells technology came in, and that made the whole thing much more economically possible for traction. And then now in Delhi, even in houses, we are doing solar panels in terms of panels, not in terms of windows, but in terms of panels. In most of the houses that we do incorporate the solar power on the roof, which in turn can give back to the grid, and those kind of possibilities have come in. But if you're talking only about the fenestration, and then talking about a technology wherein the window itself can become a solar panel, it's again the financial to catch up to make it more relevant to in terms of immediate use, in terms of builders starting to use it immediately in their buildings.
Yeah, Mr. Amit,
I would like to add something here.
Yes, Mr. Milind.
Yeah, I would like to add here the direct use of solar cells into the window or a facade of fenestration will take a lot of time, because the orientation of the building, orientation of the facade, and orientation of the building, orientation of the facade panels are more critical for the proper functional solar system, so that we can use the solar energy for a better purpose. But return on the investment is another factor where developers are not ready to invest in such facades, and the technology is evolving, and it will take time where we will have better productive cells which can be used in a facade, because the glasses what we are using for those are already a performance glasses. On top of that, in the spandrel area also, if we have to use the solar panels, then integration into the facade is another challenges.
Yeah, yes, Mr.
So it will take some time.
Surely. So, but you see it as a future.
Yeah, it's a future, but it needs more research, more evolvement. So you can safely wait for another 10 years. After 10 years, we can see such buildings in India.
Yeah, Mr. Nitin got something to say. Yes, Mr. Nitin.
I'll just quickly add in this is from totally an aesthetic perspective, because technical points have already been covered. One of the things that probably the architects and residential customers have in mind is having a very clean facade when we are using glass. So using solar panels in facade would probably may not be a very well accepted idea if it is obstructing the view. So it just disturbs the whole thing, because solar panels with the solar layer on it will definitely kind of reduce the visibility for the occupant. So here you can only do away with places where the spandrel, wherein in buildings in front of the slabs or wall areas where the glazing will have to be put in, but at the same time all it has been put in is to capture heat and generate electricity out of it, but not in the areas from where you get visibility. So that's what I wanted to add in terms of the aesthetic aspect. That's a big restriction. Why? Because we are going towards these fenestrations which can give large spans, and suddenly something coming in the way of a view probably will be difficult to kind of I would say make customers habitual of.
Yes, Mr. Nitin, thank you so much. Ms. Nandita, I was coming to you actually. Yeah, yes, because you have something to ask? Yeah, please, sure. Yeah, Ms. Nandita want to add something to what we are discussing. Yes.
No, I just wanted to say that I'm proud to say that our house has solar panel grids, and we supply to the electricity. So it is working, and we're quite happy with it. So
Okay. And also,
people like us should go in for it, where you have bungalows or you have a lot of. India is so blessed with sun that we really should use it to its maximum.
Very true.
Also, Mr. Nandita, you clearly said that fenestration moves along with the time. And at once upon a time, we were more focused on available material around, the ecosystem to use fenestration. And today we reached to a world where rapid construction is on demand. And what we are looking for is, easy go installation, that ready-made fenestrations or ready-made doors, windows which are available. Just take it and install it. And we are moving towards that world. So how do you see that it impacts the aesthetic aspect of projects?
There are two design aspects, like the modern, like Mr. Nitin Mehta says rightly, that you use minimal, just glass so that you feel you're inside, outside. I mean, you don't feel you're part of nature, which is fantastic. When you have that kind of view and you have that kind of garden, yes. But maybe where in a place like Bombay or Pune, where there's so many high rises and you're looking into someone else's balcony or into someone else's window. I think here we could use fenestration where the piercing in the jali forms, like Mr. Sorkhade, he rightly said that they're using the fenestrations with Indian kind of jali designs, but in a modern way. So I think it's a challenge to the architects to be practical and not lose on the aesthetics. And I'm sure in such situations we could use our Indian sensibilities, with the merging of our designs in modern, like Bill Bensley is doing, or Jeffrey Bawa did. And he used a lot of his colonial elements into his architecture. So it's how you look at the different perspectives. So
yes, absolutely.
What you want.
What you want. And also, we are talking about the sustainability of projects. So, Mr. Milind, my question is to you that when we talk about sustainability, what extent can biophilic facades improve sustainability of a building?
Sustainability biophilic facade is a very nice concept, and it will tend to grow, but mainly in the residential buildings. In commercial, it has a limited approach because the maintenance is very challenging. Now we have the green walls. Recently, in one of our project for the 7-story podium, we had a green wall, perforated stones, aluminum screens, everything we incorporated. But then the maintenance of such biophilic facade, where we are having a green wall or the planters and all. So periodic maintenance is another challenge. See, when we say we are making something sustainable, then we have to think from the maintenance point of view, and this is where somewhere there is a lacking or ignorance is there. And in a broader picture, if we make everybody aware that what are the advantages and the challenges lies ahead of them, then obviously everybody will start accepting it. But yes, certainly there are some positive things are happening in incorporating the biophilic facade, and you will, in coming years, you will see many buildings adopting that.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr.
But the vertical green walls are becoming more and more common in facades.
Yeah, green walls are becoming more and more common in facades. Mr. Nitin Mehta, I request you to give a closing statement for this session as we are approaching the end of this session.
Okay, it was a very good experience to have all you guys, sharing your experiences by way of your presentations. And frankly, it was an eye-opening for me. Why? Because being the younger generation, I have always kind of looked at more contemporary architecture as the right architecture. But when we started from ancient to probably contemporary, it is really very eye-opening. And I think the one word that we probably kind of follow religiously when we are kind of designing our own systems is actually to do with sustainability. Although this word has been kind of spoken many times in our conversation now, but I think we are very much responsible about what we do today for the benefit of the future generation. And there is no other word which can define it best, which is sustainability. Everything that we are actually looking at, either it is facades or maybe other elements of architecture. And that is how these things have really become, important in terms of the green building councils, etc. And I would say that let's pick up the best of what we can from the past sciences, kind of add on our present changes, and then find a solution which is more sustainable for the future habitant of this world. So I would like to close it on saying thank you to everyone, and all the best for a sustainable future. Thank you.
Thank you, panelists, for exchanging your valuable thoughts on today's topic, fenestration trends from then to now. We hope you enjoyed it. Before wrapping up today's session, we would like to thank our distinguished panelists, Nandita Ghatge, Milind Sorkhade, Amit Gulati, and Nitin Mehta. I would also like to thank my associate editor, Mr. Vikas Bhadra, and editor, Mr. Prasad Nair, for taking this initiative. We would like our delegates and viewers to stay connected with us on our social media handles. ACE Update is available on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Additionally, you can also download our app from Google Play and App Store. So with this, we would like to announce the closing of today's session. Request you to stay tuned for more such sessions. Thank you and goodbye.